Yeah, it was a good start today. With you heard about the elevator. Did you tell the story about what she said when she phoned?
Yeah, it was part of the story.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Have you solved your problems now?
Everything's solved.
Yeah.
And even the clip is ready, so
okay.
We can discuss it after like some introduction.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Can you hear us properly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Closer? Lepší? Better? Okay.
No, it's not working.
Not working?
It's a bit of a problem here.
But you can hear us, interpreters. Okay, so... Maybe some elevator guy remains.
I'm sorry for... it might be... You know, I was supposed to see Jan Gilek here today, but he got ill, and then we got stuck in the elevator, and then this didn't work, and now the microphone don't work. So I'm very sorry for bringing a lot of bad luck here, but I hope it's not.
Test 1, 2, 3. Maybe I will just shout it out loud and.
Yeah, it is working.
Not,
you do like
not
that,
mine,
but not
so far.
Much.
Okay. Anyway, let's start. Not to make it longer. You got a very special life experience in several stages of your life, and one is pretty early on, because you worked as a projectionist at, I know, 14, 15 years old?
I was 12.
12?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Oh, we had some. Yes, well, I was, when I was a kid, I was very interested in film. And I didn't see much of my father, but sometimes we met. He came like once in a month, and we went out to have a dinner, and then the nicest thing was that we went to the movie afterwards. But it wasn't really the movie that was the thing for me, because the thing was that we always went to the projection room and visited the projectionist during the screening. Is it simultaneously translated for you? Yeah. So, when I was 12, I met this old projectionist who he was in his 60s at the time, and he had been a projectionist on all Stockholm cinemas for his whole life. And he said to me, "You're welcome back. You can come whenever you want and hang around here in the projection room." And it was this huge, beautiful cinema in Stockholm center. So every day after school, I went to the cinema, and I spent all evening there, and learned how to be a projectionist. And then I quit school very soon, because I didn't have time to go to school anymore, because I spent all the time in the projection room. It was also day screenings a lot, so I was there all the time. I was preoccupied with that, and I also learned how to with the other cinemas around in Stockholm. So I learned, because it was different things, how to start. How the mechanics were a bit different in different projectors, different. But I went around and learned all cinemas, and then when the projectionist didn't get free time, they paid me under the table, because I was too young to work, and they paid me, and I went up the back way, and then I screened the films during the evenings there in Stockholm. So that's how it started, and that's how I finished school.
And do you feel any nostalgia regarding 35 millimeters?
Absolutely, absolutely. Even both 35 and 70 millimeters, and I even was working with these old coal lamps. I don't know if you have seen this kind of. It's a plus and a minus coal, and that you put together, and then it comes a beam, and it becomes a strong light. So the first thing, this old projectionist, he was a kind of a funny guy. He said, "Look in." He opened it I said, look in here. And then he put them together. So I was completely blind for 5 minutes after. And then I was, the first projector I learned was an old coal projector that we screened the commercial before the other film started, the main. So I could take care of the commercial and run that projector. That was how it started.
And then you started also on film sets. There are several enigmatic film professions, at least for Czech audience, in the end credits, which includes best boy, grip or key grip, and that's what you did.
Yeah. It was also thanks to my father that I was, during the summers, I was visiting the shooting of his films. I started with The Magic Flute, 1972, I think, or maybe it was 74, maybe, and then Face to Face. And during the summers, I was mostly I got mostly interested in the technique and what the technicians did. And I bonded very much with the electricians and the grips and so on. So when we were shooting in the studio, they sent me up on the roof in the studio to collect cables and stuff, because it was difficult to run up 20 meters up in the roof and work up there. So they thought I could do that. So I was doing that, and little by little I got to know them. And there was this also a good, like this projectionist Nypan, I met this old key grip who was a profile also in the Swedish film industry, who was a bit the same like Nypan with the projection. He said, you can be on my shoots, you can come and be my assistant. So I was from 1977 I spent time with him on the film set, doing this late, and slowly I started to do tracking shots, because that was a thing that I had to learn, and I was not allowed to do that from the start myself, but he learned me how to think and how to move the camera and so on, so I could do small adjustments, and then I did more and more. And as I grow older, I work with like 2 to 3 films per year together with him, and I got some little payment and so on. And in the evenings, I got this as a projectionist some money as well, so I could earn money. And then I got my own work, my own job as a projectionist, as a grip during Swedish film production.
Could you comment a little bit on your cooperation with Sven Nykvist?
Yeah, Sven Nykvist he was the cinematographer of my father's films, and it was not much of a collaboration, because I was working those films. I was working in the beginning. I worked with my father, but I was young and I was just an assistant. But when working with other films, it was not much with Sven Nykvist, because he was working in the States doing Hollywood films at the time mostly. But because he won Academy Awards and so on. But later on it became like that we did Fanny and Alexander. And then I was already quite established in the film business, and I got to be known for being good in tracking shots, and the number one grip to use as a dolly grip in Sweden. And when Andrei Tarkovsky, the Russian director, came to do his film in Sweden, he told Sven that he needs the best dolly grip you can bring to the set. And I was asked to work on the production. And I had seen all of Andrei's films before. And I saw that he was, as if you are familiar with Tarkovsky, you know that all his scenery and images are built on moving camera and no cuts. And I studied it quite a lot before working with this film. I was quite young. I had worked almost 10 years already, but I was only 23 or so. So I realized also that those grips he had before in Soviet and in Italy, it was old senior guys. It was the oldest, most experienced guys. And there I came, 23 years old. And to Andrei, it was very important who was the dolly grip. And the first thing we had before we started to shoot, we had a gathering, the whole crew, where Andrei was supposed to say what he wanted to do and explain a little bit about the film. And the producer was quite nervous because she was a lady from Hungary originally called Katinka, who had worked with Ingmar. She started out with Ingmar when she was very young. She started with the film industry when she was 16. Now she was about 50 years old and she had become a producer, but she had mostly worked with Ingmar. Now Andrei came and would work with her, and she was terribly nervous because he couldn't explain really in advance what he would do. He came from the communist system where you could get the Red Army 400 people without any cost. But we're coming to the Western film production where everything cost a hell of a lot of money. He was just used being an artist coming on the set, and so Mr. Tarkovsky, what do you want to do today? And he would say, yeah, well, bring 300 people to do this and that, and they would do it, but not in Sweden. So we started with him painting on the wall or on a sketch, because she said that you will have. We knew that it would be long tracking shots, and it was a bit of a swamp area where we would shoot this film.
Which is great for tracks, of course.
Yeah, and it's not so good to build on. But and then he said, yes, for example, we can do like this, he said, just to give her a little challenge. So he started to paint on land, and then he sketched, there was a house, and then he put a mark, and then he said the tracking starts here, and then it goes here, and then it goes here, and then it passes the house, and then it continued out in the water, and it went like 50 meters out in the ocean. And this producer, she looked at Sven, and she looked at me, and she looked at the crew, and she looked at Andrei, and you can't be serious, she said. Da, конечно. He said, of course, it's normal. And we realized we were in front of a bit of a challenge. And then he went to the room and he said, well, who is going to be the grip doing the tracking shots here? It's me, 23 years old. And he looked at me for a long time, and he bent forward. He said, it's a very difficult job you have. Yes, I know. Okay, he said. And then he looked at Sven, and Sven said, oh, no problem. And then the first shooting day came. And then we would do a dream, of course, in the Tarkovsky movie. It's a lot of dreams. And the principal shooting of the film was taking place in the summer. But we would do a dream where it needed some snow, melting snow. And an old castle that was a ruin, where Alan Josefsson would walk around between dark trees in the dawn, in black and white, with snow spots all around, and we would track, and the trees would pass, and Alan would walk there in his black dress. And we went to a place like 2 hours from Stockholm. And Andrei said, well, here we will do it, and here we will put the track, and here we will try to put the camera. And so we realized, well, it's melting snow, and we're going to start like 4 o'clock in the morning to get the right light and so on. So let's build this track on Friday, and then we will shoot on Monday morning. So we went there and we put a huge 50-meter long track. It takes like a few hours to build it. It took us at least, and then we went home and we had a weekend, and in the meantime the snow was melting a bit, and we came there in the morning, and what I didn't know was that Andrei was actually composing. He couldn't direct without looking in the camera, so he sat for a very long time in the morning. The light was almost away, the special light we would have. He sat in the camera watching, and I would walk with the track back and forth, back and forth. He tried all the time, and I walked there, and it became more and more mud. And then we would focus on doing the first take in the whole film that we would shoot for 3 months, with Daniela Bergmana as a dolly grip. And Andrei said, camera and roll, and we started, and then suddenly the whole rail fell down. And you know, again, Andrei looked at me, and he looked at Sven, and the producer looked at me, and I said to the producer immediately, if you want me to leave, I'll leave him, but I will try to build it up again first. So me and my colleagues, we started to build this track, and the light was fucked, and everything went up to lunchtime or something when we had this finished. But then we did the shot, and it went well. So in a way, it was good, because later on we decided, he had no confidence for me whatsoever, and I was all the time close to the camera, so following shots, you know, he didn't want to look at me, and I was next to him all the time, and he hated it. I felt how he got disturbed by having me near, and I was, and it was beginning. I had serious talks with the producer. I said to her, I'm off. It's no problem. You can fire me, and I understand you completely. And she said, no. We know you can do this. And so what I and my grip colleagues decided to do when we came to Gotland. Gotland is the island outside of. It's on the Baltic Sea, where we shot most of the film. We decided that we would put the track on. We were poling it out, so we put poles down as deep as we could, and then we built on the poles all these 50-meter tracks. And so it was rocks. It could stand there for like 10 years, which was not necessary, because when the shot was done, then we could take it away. So, so we did, and. It worked out fine, and I think after 3 weeks, he started to gain a little bit more trust. But Andrei was always on the back of me. He went in Italian. He said, vai, piano, vai. And I was there with the dolly and the whole, you know, camera crew on the dolly. It's quite heavy. And Andrei also had this idea that the cross in the camera has to be in the center of, for example, we can have a look that Erland is walking and on the field, like far away, and I had this huge dolly and the track, and then he said the cross in the camera shall be in Erland's ear all the time. Okay. So I tried to do that, but as soon as Sven Nykvist started to pan, just the slightest, so Andrei watched the camera if he would pan, because at that time we didn't have monitors. He said, cut, Daniel. He went furious, because, you know, but the thing is that he didn't understand that this doesn't show in the image, but he was so without compromises. So it was also when we had the crane, somebody would climb up a staircase. Then the whole crane had to be, the cross had to be in Erland's neck. And, you know, you have a whole crane between you and the neck. And it's normal that you can tilt a little bit without, but not for Andrei Tarkovsky, because he was completely without compromises. Would you like to see this?
Yeah, maybe let's
yeah,
play
we
it
can.
now, and then we can
continue.
it
There's a lot to say about Andrei Tarkovsky.
Yeah, can we switch off the light, please? Yeah.
Ja, nu får du komma och hjälpa mig, pojken.
This is the opening of the sacrifice.
En gång för mycket länge sedan, förstår du.
Do you see?
Så var det en gammal munk från ett ortodoxt kloster. Pambe hette han. Som planterade ett torrt träd på ett berg. Just så här. Och till sin lärjunge, en munk som heter Ivan Kolov, sa Pambe att han skulle vattna det där trädet varje dag tills det fick liv. Jag får lite stenar där nu då. Och så tidigt varje morgon så fyllde han en spann med vatten och gav sig av. Och så steg han upp på berget och vattnade den där torra trädstammen. Och på kvällen, när det redan var mörkt, så återvände han till klostret. Och så pågick det 3 hela år. Men så en vacker dag så kom han upp på berget och såg att hela hans träd var översållat med blommor. Och vad man än må säga så är metoden, systemet, någonting stort. Vet du, ibland så säger jag mig att om man varje dag vid precis samma tid skulle göra en och samma sak som en ritual, orubbligt, systematiskt, varje dag, ständigt på exakt samma tid, då skulle världen förändras. Någonting i den skulle förändras, den skulle inte kunna göra annat. Man skulle, låt oss säga, vakna på morgonen, stiga upp precis klockan 7, gå ut i badrummet, hälla upp ett glas vatten ur kranen och så hälla ut i toaletten bara det.
Nu blir du stavlig med så lätt.
Det är vackert, va?
Alexander.
Det är som i Japan. Icke-vana.
Jag är bjuden hem till dig ikväll för att gratulera på födelsedagen. Det är en stor ära för mig. Jaha, här är det sista. Posten är stängd.
Posten?
Om de kommer för sent nu så får han vänta tills imorgon. Varsågod.
Inga glasögon på mig, kan du läsa det?
Gratulerar gode vännen på födelsedagen. Stopp omfamnar store Richard. Gode först mycket. Stopp. Gud give dig lycka, hälsa, fritt, stopp. Dina ständigt trogna, kärleksfulla Richardiner och idiotister.
Oj, så rörande då.
Jaha, ett skämt. Vänner som skämtar. Idiotister, det är inte så dumt sagt. Gud give din lycka. Vad har du för förhållande till Gud egentligen?
Inget alls, jag är rädd. Vad menar du med det?
Ja. Det är väl inte så farligt. Här är du. Känd journalist. Skriver teater och litteraturkritik. Föreläser i estetik. För ungdomar på universitetet.
Du, innan så fick jag hämta den då.
Essäer. Det skriver du också. Men hela tiden så dyster.
Vad är det du syftar på? Det här med dyster alltså.
Ja, du ska inte sörja så mycket. Du ska inte längta efter någonting. Du ska inte vänta dig något. Det är det viktiga där. Man ska inte vänta sig något.
Hur då inte vänta sig något? Vem säger att jag väntar på någonting?
Vi väntar väl alla på någonting. Ta mig till exempel. Hela livet har jag gått och väntat på någonting. Hela livet har jag känt det faktiskt som om jag befann mig på en järnvägsstation. Och jämt har jag känt det som om det som har varit, det har inte varit något verkligt liv utan en väntan på liv, en väntan på någonting verkligt. Någonting viktigt, är det inte så för dig?
Jo, om det är så du menar så. Jag tänkte bara inte att du är intresserad av den sortens problem.
Jo då. Jag visste, tyvärr. Det var så konstiga saker i skallen så jag försäkrar dig. Som till exempel den där dvärgen, den där ökända dvärgen.
Vilken dvärg? Jag menar, när du verkligen lyckas göra mig totalt förvirrad här.
Men det vet du väl, den där puckelryggen. Ja, hos Nietzsche. Han som fick Zarathustra att svimma.
Svimma? Vad är det du säger? Alltså, är du bekant med Nietzsche?
Nej, inte personligen. Jag har ju inte studerat honom så noga. Men han intresserar mig. Det kan jag inte förneka.
Så...
Ja, så ibland så får jag för mig någonting i stil med det här löjliga, eviga kretsloppet. Här lever vi, här har vi våra bekymmer. Vi hoppas. Vi väntar på någonting. Vi hoppas, vi förlorar hoppet, vi nalkar oss döden. Så dör vi då till slut. Och så föds vi på nytt, men inte minns vi vad som har varit. Ja, så börjar allting. Från början. Jag är inte bokstavligen på samma sätt. Lite annorlunda. Men ändå så hopplöst. Och inte vet vi varför. Ja. Nej, förresten. Precis på samma sätt. Bokstavligen likadant. Bara nästa föreställning. Så att säga.
Mm.
Ja, så där skulle jag kunna ordna det själv om det hade berott på mig. Lite komiskt, va? Är det inte det?
Ja, men det där har man ju hört förut. Det är ingenting nytt. Du tror inte att det är du som har hittat på det, inte? Ja, men tror du verkligen att människan skulle kunna finna på en konstruktion, en universell konstruktion, skapa en modell, så att säga, av den absoluta lagen, den absoluta sanningen? Det skulle ju vara att skapa ett nytt universum, att bli demiurg. Ja, du säkert dog på din dvärg på ditt ständiga kretslopp.
Ja, ibland så tror jag, förstår du, och om jag verkligen tror, så blir det så. Tron att det är givet, och det skall även ske så. Men nu tror jag att jag ska ge mig iväg hem för att det är snart kväll. Jag måste hitta på en present.
Nej, det behöver du inte.
Ja, det är en riktig högtidsdag. Överöst telegram. Au revoir.
Va? Vad är det du muttrar om? Du vet att i begynnelsen var ordet. Men nu är stunden. Stum som en fisk. En liten mört.
Yep.
Det är min pojk.
Yeah, well, you can imagine the producer being nervous because usually directors, they do 3 minutes per day, and we didn't do anything for some days. We was just rehearsing, and then after 2 days we did like this for almost 10 minutes. So this was nerve-wracking for the producer all the time.
In the very beginning, I forget to mention that your comments or questions are utmost welcome. So you are invited to ask and comment. Don't forget.
I would also add a little bit about working with Andrei, because this with not compromising was actually I don't know, we had the spirits against us quite a lot in this shooting also. So my little problem with the track in the beginning, it went further and further. I don't know, I got the feeling it had very much to do with Andrei himself. He was deeply religious, and it was almost like we had somebody against us all the time. So, for example, the end scene in the film is also on a long track, and it's a scenery for almost 10 minutes, where Erland puts fire on his house, and the house would burn down during this shot for 8 or 9 minutes. It was timed exactly, and in the meantime the actors would act in front of the house, and the track would go back and forward. It was also something like we had to shoot a certain moment when it was the correct light and so on. And we rehearsed for days, and we had a British special effects crew coming in, doing wires in the house, because the whole house was built as it was a set for the film, the exterior. But they put wires inside the house, and they had gas tubs and so on. So as soon as the house was out of frame during the burning, they put it on more burn, and then it came back and they could take it down, and then on a certain moment the walls would collapse, and they would do it with wires. And naturally we had to rehearse this quite a lot, and it was one of the last thing we would do on the shoot. Early in the morning we started up and we set light on the fire, and we started the whole scenery and the whole thing, and the house burned more and more, and then suddenly the camera that we had used for almost 3 months went beep, and I was next to it, and the focus puller said to Sven, "The camera is falling in speed." Beep, and Sven said, and the fire was going on, and the actors acted, and Andrei didn't notice. And Sven said he was never really upset for anything. He had been sinking in ships with sharks and falling down from cranes at the Broadway, and so nothing, and being attacked by gorillas in the jungle. So he was never really upset for anything. But he said, which was a strong expression from Sven Nykvist, was, "No, it can't be true," he said. And then the camera beep completely, and it stopped. And usually you do this with several cameras and action sequences and stuff, but this was built on this track, and it was this scenery, and it had to be precisely on this millimeter precision. So yeah, well, there was suddenly a cut in the middle of the it was not the camera stopped. So we put an extra camera on, but there was a gap. And the producers and the financiers and everybody said, "Well, Andrei, you have to get this together somehow. We cannot do anything now." And Andrei was devastated, and his wife came, and it was a big crisis and so on. But then suddenly they had several meetings and so on. They found the money for rebuilding the house, and so everything was built up again, and we sent the crew home from Britain, because anyway those wires didn't work either, and we brought in a guy who was a fireman actually, who would do it himself with all this fire, and we put 2 tracks, and one above the other one. So my colleague and I did, he was on the other camera and I was on the A camera, and then we did it precisely the same, and it went well. So it's in the Finnish film. The scene is there, but also this is not everything, because Andrei Tarkovsky, he had struggled many years to try to get his son out of Soviet, because they kept him as a when Andrei and his wife left Soviet Union, the authorities kept Andrushka, his son, as a hostess. And Andrei had been in Italy doing Nostalgia. They had tried to get all high politicians to help him to get them out, but nothing worked. And Andrei always said that if the sacrifice is about doing a sacrifice, and Andrei said always that if I don't get my son out now soon, I have to do something drastic. And I just tell you that we did also another dream sequence in the film, in black and white, where a lot of people, it's supposed to be a war, and a lot of people are running on the narrow streets, and the camera tilts down, and we are up on the tower with the camera, and you see the heads of the people, and you see it's war, burnt cars lying there and so on, and then we back, and then suddenly we go in over a mirror, and you see the sky, and there's blood on this mirror, and you follow the blood, and we get into a close-up of this little boy being dead, and the blood comes from him. So that was everything in that scene. So we were supposed to shoot this in the old town in Stockholm. It was a big organization. It was like 600 extras and so on that would run there. And, you know, everything with the catering and the costume and everything and the transport. And, you know, the producer was still not completely broken, but she had arranged everything. But then Andrei suddenly had been out walking in Stockholm, and he came up to the production office like a week before we would shoot this, and he said, "We are not doing this in the old town. We are doing it on another place." And she said, "We can't change everything." But he was, again, not without compromises, and he had found a street where there are staircases, so people are running down the staircase, and in the middle between the staircases there is a tunnel, and people come running out of the tunnel as well. And then otherwise everything is the same. It was just that instead of small streets in the old town, it's these staircases and this tunnel. And we shot it and went well. But then Andrei, when we finished the shoot, he got cancer, the tumor, his brain. And when the film was edited and the sound work was done, the sound engineer and Sven Nykvist went to Paris, where the French, I don't know if it was Mitterrand or who it was, had fixed a apartment for Andrei to be ill in and to die in. And he had also written a letter directly to Gorbachev, so that you have to let Andrei's son out now because Andrei Tarkovsky is dying. And they let him out. So that was a drastic sacrifice he did. But on the day Sven Nykvist and the sound engineer came there to show him what they had done in the laboratory and with the sound, Andrei was in the bed watching television, morning television in Paris. And there was a blood spot on the street from Stockholm. And he said, "Isn't this where we did the war scene?" And the blood spot was from Olof Palme, our prime minister, who had been shot last of March 1986. And the strange thing was that it was exactly where we shot the war scene, but it was like 10 meters up in the sky where the blood spot on the mirror was. So those kind of things happen with Andrei Tarkovsky. And working with Andrei made it impossible to go back to work with ordinary Swedish film production again as a grip, because I had made the peak in that job. And that led to me trying to direct on my own instead.
Any more questions about Andrei Tarkovsky? Otherwise we will move to different themes. I would like to also ask about a job you did on Il Capitano.
Yeah.
The film by Jan Trell, who is among us, was already screened here at Summer Film School.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to hear about this one also.
Yes. At the time when Il Capitano would be done, I had already directed for a few years. So I was doing work as a director, and I did also assistant director job, because in Sweden we didn't have the assistant director profession in the international sense, which I wanted to bring in. So I worked in Iceland with Ralph Gunnlaugsson, who did When the Raven Flies, and it's a Viking story, and we did a sequel, Shadow of the Raven, and so on. And also I directed television, and I directed different things. And I read in the paper a lot about Jan wanting to do Il Capitano. But the thing was that the media was very much against Jan all the time. The thing is that Il Capitano is based on a real murder case in Sweden. And the media, the tabloid press, had been earning very much money on this, because they had been very filthy and very, as they are, digging into the victims, the families' lives, and all details around this murder. But when one of our greatest film artists in the country wants to make a piece of art around this, based on around this case, the same media made more money on attacking Jan and doing this film. And I read a lot about this, and I got more and more furious. And I also was a huge admirer of Jan since before. And I had the luck to, I had done some children films, and I was in the film festival in Chicago in 1988 or 89, and Jan was there as well. And I told him, I want to be your assistant director on Il Capitano when you do it. Please have me on, which I never had done. I'd never asked anybody for work, but I felt this battle I want to be on. And Jan said, well, I don't know, because I already have an assistant director and so on. And if you can take it as a compliment, but if there is somebody I don't want as an assistant, it's you. I went home, but then suddenly I got a phone call that I was offered to be grip and electrician on the gaffer and grip, because we were a very small crew. It was about 12 people or so, doing this, a small guerrilla team. And I was just finishing a soap, TV soap, that I did the pilot of it in Sweden. It was later on 65 episodes. I did 5 in the beginning, and then I left it, and I was editing it, and then I went to Jan and continued working, and started to work with Il Capitano. And it was also a great opportunity for me to work with this great master. And still I'm fascinated by, we have talked a little bit today. We had a boring press conference where media don't know what to, because media don't, it's a big difference between what media puts, which questions media puts, and what we as filmmakers do, because media usually don't know what the director does or what the job is about, even though they have been to film school for like film science and so on, but everything is only intellectual, it's no hands-on. So we had an interesting discussion about Jan's way of working and so on, so it became interesting for me as well today. But this with Il Capitano also learned me a lot, which I try to, but you know, you have to I thought about it today. I haven't asked Jan yet, but one can see in the small things in Sunday's Children that is inspired by Jan and so on. That you feel, but I don't have this at all the same eye and the same talent or anything. But because this is it's poetry, but anyway, I get affected and very influenced, and this is which is the case with all filmmaking. You should get influenced by other directors. You can never try. Many film students believe that they will invent the new and do the new, do something new and do something spectacular and do something that, and it's a good thing. But most things are already done if you look at the film history. And the best thing is to learn by getting inspired by all the masters.
I was about to ask about it. If there's something from, I don't know, Everlasting Moments or Immigrants in Sunday's Children in terms of image.
Not in that sense, but I try to, we talked about it on the press conference today. What I asked Jan was how he does when he, for example, the thing with Jan is that he has always details. He has he had done a short film, with a video camera, he makes a short film about a little, vad heter nyckelpiga? Nyckelpiga, vad heter det?
Ladybugs.
Ladybug, with almost falling down from a table, but always in the last moment when it comes to the corner, it goes back and then it and it saves itself all the time, but it's really near death all the time. And then he puts the exactly correct music to this drama, and it's something that he just does at home. It's these details that he puts into his films that becomes poetry. It gives everything so much more dimensions than just telling a story, having the dialogue, having the acting. It's always details. In Hamsun, for example, we talked about it also today, when Max von Sydow comes in to see Quisling, and he has problem. He has this water cover for the shoes, and he gets great problems to take them off. And the whole beginning of the scene is a big problem with that. And then in the end of the scene, he leaves Quisling, and Quisling sits there with a glass of brandy, and he has a portrait of his daughter on the table. And he sits with this brandy, and he looks at the portrait of his own daughter through this brandy. And yeah, it's for me, that's what filmmaking is about. And I mean, the whole thing with when Hamsun meets Hitler also in the top on the mountain, and this small guy with all these big furnitures and the whole situation between them, and it's very detailed work. And Jan gave me a little clue today. Actually, he said because everybody knows that finding the right actors is crucial when doing films. It's not. I talked about it about children when Sunday's Children, that to find the right child is even more crucial, because an actor can always act professionally. But still, Jan said that most of the job is done when you find the right actor. But he went even further, because he said he goes to the set, and then he spends time alone on the set quite a lot, and he finds the things happens on the set, and the actors and the set. And that's what this, and then Jan also has the possibility to put the camera on exactly the right spot. I often, during Il Capitano, I thought about it, because as a grip, you are standing beside the camera all the time. You can see exactly how the director works, how the cinematographer works. Now Jan is a cinematographer and a director in the same person. And you, very often on common films, and that's also the reason why I started to direct, I often think that, yeah, well, I could do it better myself, because you come into a room, you have read the script, and you think, what could you do out of this scenery? And this, how would you tell the story? Where would you put the camera? Or how would you do the lighting? And they came up to conclusions many times that I thought was quite, boring. But Jan was always walking into the set or in a field where, you know, when you came to the location, you saw a small white hat walking out in the field somewhere like 500 meters away, and that was Jan looking for the place to put the camera, and then he find exactly the right spot to do the scene and the right angle and the right lens, and it becomes magic. So that was.
And how was your collaboration with Tony Forsberg, who was the DOP on Sunday's Children, like impacted by your own grip experience?
Yeah, I had been a grip for Tony Forsberg many times, even since I was very young. So it was a new relation that I would direct him as a cinematographer. But Tony was having a nervous. He was not. I didn't think about it before. I was too young to think about these things. But he was always a nervous person. And also I like to compose the pictures myself. So I did all the composing all the time, and how it would be done and so on. And Tony was always very concerned up till the point where he solved the whole thing. I mean, he understood how he would put the lighting, and he was just nervous all the time. And it was difficult for me as a director, having this old cinematographer who was, I mean, old. He wasn't old, but for me he was a senior. But he wasn't giving much of comfort, because sometimes he chose the easy way out. But then he back and he did the wonderful work in the end, and it's a beautiful lighting in the film, and he also won prizes for it. So it was I love the guy very much, because I know him very well, and now he's old and yeah. But it was not easy. But I wasn't easy either. So I was also a very nervous young man, and very demanding and very terrible to work with, I guess.
And did you pick Tony Forsberg also because you wanted the film to look in a different way than your father's films?
No, I wasn't that. But Sven Nykvist, I couldn't afford him because he was in America. And I didn't have it, because, you know, I could have had Jörgen Persson, who was also one of the great cinematographers in Sweden by the time. But I knew Tony much better personally, so I thought that would be good, you know. So.
Any questions regarding Sunday's Children? Jan Torell has a question. Okay, you're welcome.
Nu börjar vi igen.
I would like to tell a little story from the making of it.
Yeah.
When Daniel was saved, one of the most difficult, most important scenes in the film, which was very early at the beginning of the film. And that was a very complicated tracking shot combined with the zoom. And making those movements at the same time without making it obvious is very difficult. And we had to lay out the track, and the camera was there, everything was working. We rehearsed the scene that would be timed with a car. It was almost a Tarkovsky scene.
Yes.
And the car was suddenly showing on
in the landscape,
very far away. It stops, and you hear a child cry or something like that. And it's very unusual that I make such complicated scenes. And when we were ready to shoot it, I discovered I couldn't. I was too fat at the time. I could not get down all the way to the
viewfinder.
Viewfinder. And
Your belly was in the way. Yeah.
tried several times, and suddenly, finally, gone and said me, I can do that.
So I did it.
And he did it perfectly.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. But also I did one thing else that Jan was not so happy with, because we needed some stock shots where the boy on the main role in the film, he would go up through the border between Finland and Sweden in the north with the car, and we needed only one shot of him passing the border with a sign of the entering Sweden.
5 seconds.
5 seconds, yeah. And I got a lot of film with me, and I was sent to do this because Jan asked me, "You can do this. You can go up to the north with Antti, the actor, and then you do this shot, and then you go back." And okay. But I brought a lot of film, and when I came home, I had like 1 hour. I started to make my own film, with Antti putting petrol in the car and doing different things. Because we got bored by just sitting in the car, we wanted to make more movie. So it was not good for the budget. But yeah.
Questions? If not, then we will move to first priority, your documentary film from 2002.
Yeah.
And which will be shown tonight or tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yeah.
At the festival. But it's very important in your filmography and in your life.
Yeah.
Because that's your last film, basically, so far. And it was done for a year or maybe even longer.
No, it was just that I did the research for a year.
Research, okay.
Yeah.
And it follows an ambulance and nurses, and you got pretty much involved in this, and you ended up as a nurse. And you completely gave up filming. So can you tell us a little bit about this probably huge experience that changed your life?
No, I had worked with 25 years with film, and I was quite obsessed by film, and I thought it was very important. And when I went into production, I always thought it was on life and death, and it was important. And I think also that I had very high demands on myself, which made me lose a lot of the fun that I started with. When I started to do my first film, I wanted to try to be a director and to do a film. It would be fun to see if I can, and it went well. It went to the Berlin Festival, and then I was offered to do more films, and suddenly I was a director, and I was offered to be a director, and I was getting money for it, and I went on. But then I slowly I discovered, especially after Sunday's Children, that I was working with a very good script, and that I was looking for I tell you this long story because this has to do with why I finished. I was offered to do, after Sunday's Children, that was, of course, it was a film that was brought out in the whole world and also in the North America, and it became a big art house movie in the States, which made Hollywood being interested. They always have young European talent to look at. And I got agent and manager and so on, and I was transported to Los Angeles, and I had my ass licked for several weeks by fancy dinners, fancy cars, fancy meetings with Julia Roberts, Sean Penn, and everybody wanted to work with me. And this is the way they do it in Hollywood. They lick ass a lot and they talk a lot. And then they asked what you want to do, and I didn't want to do anything because I was quite depressed after Sunday's Children, so I wanted to go home, and it made them even more interested. and telling Julia Roberts that I don't know what I want to do. That was because everybody is fighting the ass off to get to the position I was in. But I met Lasse Hallström also who was another famous Swedish director who did a film in Sweden called My Life as a Dog, but now he has done a lot of American films, Gilbert Grape and Shipping News and lots of, I don't remember all the chocolate. However, he was there also at the same situation but he had been there before with the same situation because the Americans told him, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do?" And he said, well, he knew he wanted to be in the States. So he said, "Yeah, I want to do Peter Pan." "Great, we're going to do Peter Pan. It's beautiful." And they licked his ass for 5 years, but no Peter Pan. And in the end of the day, they wanted him to do a child TV series. He had done like 15 films before, but they wanted him to do a child TV series just to see if he could work in the American system. And then he did that, and then he was offered to do a film called Once Around with Richard Dreyfuss, and then he can also work with American actors, and then he was offered to do more. But so I had this story also behind me so I didn't trust the Americans very much when they was asking me what I wanted to do. And also the demands was so high on myself, so I lost more and more of this. So I was struggling to find a new script that would be as good as Sunday's Children's script, or would feel as much for me, which I couldn't really, even though I was offered all these Hollywood films and so on, because they sent me lots of scripts and wondered, how do you think about Sense and Sensibility I got? How do you think about that? Which Ang Lee did later. And I said, it's too much dialogue, and I sent it back. And then they went, what? And then they sent more. And I was just looking for Godot. So nothing happened. But so what I'm saying, that this was actually the beginning to the end, because I lost my passion, or not the passion, but the lust, the fun of making film. I lost it. But I continued as a director for many years after Sunday's Children, but then I had the opportunity as a director. You visit lots of people when they work with different things. I'm curious on what people work with and so on. So I could go on a plane in the cockpit, or I could go on the train in the front, or I could, visit different things in the society and different. I always say, "Hi, I'm a director. Yeah, we know you," because I was known. And can I be with you? Yeah, sure, come. So I could. And then there was this anesthesia nurse who watched one of my films, and I asked her, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm an anesthesia nurse in the emergency pre-hospital emergency care in Stockholm." And I said, "Can I go with you to see your job?" And she said, "Yes, sure, you can come Friday and Saturday night." And I went with them Friday, Saturday night. There was 2 ladies working in the car. One was driving, and this lady was. They had a common car. They were adapting to the ambulance with a higher medical competence. And we had like murders, and we had strokes, and we had heart attacks, and we had car crashes, and we had everything those 2 nights. And I woke up on Sunday afternoon, and I thought, I have been really experiencing something that I had never been close to before, with those people making a difference immediately with their hands on. It was similar to filmmaking. It's a hands-on job, but they made it for real in life and death. And I decided to make a documentary about them, which not became so because it was difficult to get admission to do it in Stockholm. But I spent half a year. I was in South Sweden doing a TV series for 6 months. And during the sound work of this TV series, I spent nights and days when I didn't have to be in the sound studio. I spent time in the ambulance. And then I came back to Stockholm. I spent another half year in the ambulance in Stockholm, just to get to learn how this job works. And then I got the money to do the film, and I did the film, and I produced it and directed it. It's on tomorrow, first priority. And when I was finished with this, I was supposed to go and do some crime drama, common, what do you call these directors? As you do for living, Yeah, exactly.
To pay
but
your
I
bills.
felt I can't do that. I can't. I want to be in the ambulance, and the people in the ambulance, they said, yeah, well, you can't go with us anymore because now you have finished your film. You have no permission anymore. You had a permission just because you were doing the film, and now it's over, and now you have to go to study if you want to be with us anymore. And so I decided I will leave the film industry, and I went to. I studied high school because I had never been in school. So I got maths and all different nature, science, and so on. And then I searched, came into the university, and then I was there for 4 years. And during the studies, I also got a job in the ambulance in the lower competence. And then I became a specialist nurse in pre-hospital emergency care. And since then, I've been working with that. And it's still a challenging job, which always is every day satisfying in a way that filmmaking never had been for me. Because every day I come home from my job, I feel I have done something good. I feel happy. And it's also the case that I reacted on that when I was doing the film, that all these people working with this, they seem happy people. It's happy people. It's a kind of luck to help other people. This is something that scientists say, but nobody believes it. But it is actually. Especially when you have a lot of medication, when you can make a difference between life and death. Or just giving pain killing, or whatever you do. You can hold the hand of a 90-year-old lady, and you get this clap in the end, and you have made her day, and that's a good thing. You come home and you feel, okay, I have done this today. I could never feel this when I came home and had done film, because I was always troubled about what would happen next day. What would I do next day? How would I overcome anxiety for the next film and so on? So I'm happy with this life, but I went through a divorce as well, and having children, and so an idea has come up that I think has to be done on film in some way. A story about how we lose our children, how we maybe love each other very much, and then how we want too much out of our paradise. The middle class in Sweden have everything they need, have all the money, all the things, everything is served, but they want more all the time. We want more as human beings. We are never satisfied. And what happens is that we forget about the people who are standing next to us, saying, we are here, put time on us and it will all be solved. But we don't care about the children. We say, that is the most expensive we have. But we don't have time for it, because we want so much. And suddenly we divorce, and suddenly we are betraying each other, and we are starting to talk with lawyers, and we don't discuss anything with each other anymore. And then the lawyer says, the only thing you have that you really have to be, that you really love, both of you, is your children. And if you don't talk to each other, it's just the children who are being victims of that. Yeah, but we can't talk to each other, but we love our children. And this is what the story is about. So we are developing a script, and we will see. Maybe it happens, maybe it not happen. I don't know. You never know. Film industry in Sweden, it has become more or less that you can't make a French film or a French TV series about just a relation about this kind of problem. You must put a murder in it or something. It has to be spectacular in some sort. If you look at Netflix, all the series, it's pitch hell. You can see that it's all based on pitches. The director goes to the producer, and he has to make the producer have a say, yeah, well, the story is like this, and then the guy dies, and then so on. So yeah, great. And then you can make a great story out of that, but it very rarely happens. But for example, Breaking the Way, Sopranos, and so on, and those series that are good are about relations between people, but it's on steroids. So because it has to be a plot, it has to be something that is beyond just a common relation. It's only the French people now, I think, doing just a relation drama. No? No, maybe not. But this is my view. So we are working on this now and see how it goes. We have, at least we have this big company who did the bridge film launch, and they want to, they think this is a good idea as well. So we'll see.
Is it too hot for questions?
Yeah. Sorry. First, just sorry for my English. I don't know if it will be enough.
I understand.
I would like to ask you: did you ever, because you are saying that you have to cooperate with somebody, with many people actually.
I have to cooperate
with other people when I'm doing the.
While making movies.
Yeah, and so did you thought about doing more professions, like to write script and make the camera and director and do more things?
No, you know, the thing was, when I finished, there was so many opportunities. I was assistant director as well, and I knew many different jobs in film. I could
your own movie, when you decide like this, you have your own feelings that you want to do this kind of movie.
No, I try to leave as much as faith as possible to the people I'm working with, because that's a good leadership. But I want to compose the pictures myself, and I want to. Then it's up to the cinematographer to do the lighting, of course, and so on. But I like to compose the pictures, and I like to work closely with the actors. And that's about it when I was directing. That also was maybe my stronger parts. I'm not so good in editing, and I'm not so good in dramaturgy and so on. But working with the actors and the images, I felt quite happy with. Yeah.
In First Priority, there's a strong sense of harmony. Those happy people working with their patients.
Yeah.
There are no fights, no arguments, no aggressive patients, nothing like that. So after you went in this business, you started to work for ER. Was this harmony still there?
Yeah, well, it is among the. I'm still actually quite amazed by that the people working are actually seem like very harmonic people. It's a lot of laughter and a lot of fun. But the job in itself is, of course, we are confronted now. We had a terror deed, for example, in Stockholm this spring, and we are being pushed into on the call. You never know where you come to. You don't know in advance. Suddenly you are with somebody who has a knife, and I had colleagues who got a psychiatric patient who shot with them at them, so they had to run, and the guy shot himself afterwards. So there are these kinds of things happen. It's a risky. It's sometimes risky, but it's very rare that the bad things happen. Of course, you can also lose a child that you work with, I have been giving birth to a baby who didn't start to breathe for like almost 5 minutes, and I was working, and so after that I managed to make him breathe. But in those moments you are very, very small in this job. But it's those challenges also that I know that it's only what I do with my hands here and now that makes the outcome. You see, so it's very stimulating also, as long as you do right. But most people survive when I come. I haven't killed so many yet.
Do you think if you now go back to directing and filmmaking, how will this be influenced by your experience as a nurse now? Will you be a different director because you're a nurse, and how do you think that will?
I don't know. I hope so. I sure hope that I can, but it's not the experience from, or maybe it is. I don't know, but I think I will be a better leader, understanding even more than before, which I actually understood also the last few years I was directing, that the crew and the actors are everything. I just have to make them feel good. You can be fighting your crew, you can be angry, you can be like I was when I did Sunday Children. I was angry at everybody all the time. I was not happy with anything, but that changed. But I understand that. I think leadership I understand even better. And also there is another thing. It's that I think I got closer to with working with this kind of job. I have a little bit of a different perspective on film also, because I've been sitting together with my colleagues in front of the TV in the station we have many times, and there's a stupid film on, and I think this is the worst fucking shit I ever seen on TV, and they think it's good, and tell me why it's good. Yes, because of this and that, and hey Bergman, you are always so serious. To calm down a little bit and don't be so artistic all the time. And so this has a certain impact on me, because I think it's a challenge for me. If I would go back to film, it's a challenge for me to reach the audience in a larger sense than I have done before, because I never really. I'm not happy with the amount of people who has seen my films. It's not enough. It's not good enough. I haven't been able to attract the big audience. I have attracted some audience, and I've been around the world, and people are saying very nice things, and people are happy with the films. But I don't think it's enough. I want to try to communicate with the audience in a better way, and I hope I maybe can do that next time. You can't think about the audience when doing a film. You're going on intuition, but you can somehow, when you construct the manuscript and so on, you can at least be more open to that. This is going to meet. This should be available for a large audience. Otherwise, it's no use to tell a story for me. So this is important for me. And we see how it goes. I don't know. You never know with film. Anyway, now it's very satisfying to work with developing a script on 50% and then work in the ambulance, and to move between these two worlds. And it was the same thing when I edited the first Priority. I had to go to high school on a distance to get all these things to be able to search for university. And in the meantime, I took a job also as picking up dead bodies for the police, which you can imagine is not the most aesthetic work in the world, because people are the loneliness in Sweden is immensely. So people lie in their apartments and they rotten, basically, and people are murdered, and there is a lot of violence, and there's a lot of things. And we went around with this car and picking up suicides and everything, but it gave me a view of the level of the society that I'd never been in before, and the common people never goes into. And it was a great, lovely thing to work in the night shift in this car, and standing on the morgue in the morning at 7 o'clock with a guy who had hanged himself, and the guy running the place, they're talking about this and that, and then go to the editing studio at Channel 4, where everybody trips around with eating their breakfast, and and they have never been in this world, and the other world has never met this world. So it's wonderful to alternate between different worlds, because I think that I discovered also in the ambulance, talking to relatives, and when I drive, I have relatives next to me, and when I have patients, I sit and talk to the patients. And I realized that most people tend to adapt to what they are familiar with. They live in the neighborhood where their neighbors have more or less the same background. They have a job and they meet the people. Maybe if you study film, maybe you meet mostly film students. You don't go out in the society so much, maybe. But very often I think that people tend to feel safe and be in the surrounding where they know how the opposite person will react and how they will talk to each other and so on. And this is a great thing with my job in the ambulance, that I meet all these kinds of people. It's all from the royal castle, it's all down to drug addicts and so on. And it was very fun because just a few weeks ago, because I was at the time in my life when I was maybe 13, 14, I was smoking a lot of grass. And I went to a dealer on the street in Stockholm. And now I met this guy who was really bad drug addict. He was my age, and he still lived, but he looked completely disastrous. But we found a connection because he said, yeah, I started out when I was like 11 and I smoked grass, and so, aha, you went to that street? Yeah, sure. You remember that guy? Yeah, we bought grass from the same guy, and then we had something in common. And this is, I think, is wonderful.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing all the life and film experiences with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.